This camera is an absolute beast, featuring a 6K sensor capable of shooting 10-bit video, has in-body image stabilization, and is weather sealed. And no, it is not the GH5. In fact, you can find this camera on the used market for less than $500. So in this video, we'll dive into its impressive features, discuss its pros and cons, and who should consider picking up one today. The Panasonic GH5 was released back in 2017 for $2,000 and was the first mirrorless camera capable of shooting 4K video at 10-bit 422, making it an excellent choice even today. And there are three main reasons why I think this camera is great. We'll start off with number one, and that is the image quality. The first thing I noticed when shooting with this camera is how well the image holds up, and this footage does not look like it comes from a camera of this age. Even though it is several years old now, the image quality is extremely sharp thanks to its 6K sensor, which downscales to 4K. One thing I love about the GH5 is that you can record in open gate, which means you can record the full sensor readout, which gives you a 4:3 aspect ratio in 6K. This allows you for different framing options in post-production, making this camera that much more versatile. The GH5 features a micro 4/3 sensor, which is a bit smaller than Super 35 and full frame, and some may consider that to be a downside. However, I think it's important to note the advantages you get with shooting with a micro 4/3 camera. In terms of codecs and resolutions, you can choose just about anything you can imagine, from shooting 1080p at 180 frames per second, all the way up to 4K, Cinema 4K, and even anamorphic recording up to 6K. And with that, you have the different options of choosing your bit rate. So in 4K, you can shoot as low as 150 megabits per second, all the way up to 400, which means you can choose the best settings depending on your project. The dynamic range of this camera is quite impressive considering its price and its age. When I compared this to my Sony a7S III, obviously it's not an apples to apples comparison. The GH5 just can't compete with a full frame camera like the a7S III, but I am very impressed with how well the GH5 holds up in comparison. If you really want to get the most dynamic range out of this camera, then I highly recommend shooting in Vlog-L. Now the GH5 did not ship with Vlog-L, so you will have to purchase that upgrade. Fortunately though, if you buy this camera used, many people have already installed Vlog-L onto their cameras, and that is the case with my camera, so I'm able just to switch to that. When you pair the Vlog-L with the 10-bit 422 video file, you really do get a lot of flexibility in terms of color grading. And one of my favorite ways to color grade log footage is using Cinematch, which basically allows me to convert any log profile into another. For instance, I can convert the Vlog-L from the Panasonic GH5 into an Arri Log C. And with that, you get a really nice natural looking image with only a few button presses. The second reason I like this camera is the build quality. When you first pick up the GH5, you can tell how well built it is. And they really thought out the button placements with this camera. You have a ton of different customization buttons. And again, the placement of the buttons is just really intuitive and allows the camera to simply get out of the way. If you want to adjust your white balance, there's a button for that. So I definitely appreciate the well thought out design. Along the back of the camera, we have a flip out touchscreen, which is actually a rather larger display compared to my Sony a7S III. So I do appreciate having the flexibility. I can flip it around to see myself if I happen to be in front of the camera. I honestly think that all cameras should have a flip out screen like this. On the right side of the camera, we have dual SD card slots, which is something that you wouldn't expect in a cheaper camera. But this is incredibly useful if you want to do backup recording or just want extra storage. And with all the specs packed into this camera, the battery life still remains excellent. You really could just take 2 batteries and be set for a day of shooting. On the left side of the camera, we have a microphone jack, headphone jack, HDMI, and USB-C, All of this is really video centric, and I think that makes sense for the filmmaker, for the videographer. Having that stuff built in just makes the ability to capture professional video and audio that much more easy. And speaking of audio, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Audio. Audio offers high quality music and sound effects from thousands of real artists covering a variety of genres. And what sets them apart for me are their powerful search tools that will help you find the perfect track for your project. One of my favorite tools is the Link Match AI, where I simply paste a link from a song I love and Audio suggests a similar track that fits my project's vibe. Their new stems feature is another handy tool that allows me to download individual elements of a song, giving me full flexibility to customize the music how I see fit. Audio covers all platforms and projects from YouTube to television, plus once I download an asset, it's mine to use and keep forever, even if I decide to not renew my subscription. So if you're looking to step up your videos with great music and sound effects, Audio is offering a big discount on their Audio Pro subscription for my viewers. Just use the code NatesFilms70 to get 70% off at checkout. Thanks again to Audio for sponsoring this video and supporting creators like myself. Another thing I love about the GH5 is that it's weather sealed. So when you pair this with a weather sealed lens, you can go out into the elements and this camera is going to hold up. You're not going to have to worry if it's going to rain on you. In fact, I was on a short film where we were shooting with an Arri Alexa camera and it started raining. But luckily the DP had a GH5 and we shot the rest of the short film on this camera because it was weather resistant. And all that speaks to the third point of buying this camera, and that is the versatility. I really can't think of another camera in this price range that allows you to shoot the variety of projects with one camera. If you shoot documentaries, if you shoot commercials, you could shoot it on a GH5. And when you consider that the IBIS allows you to be quicker on your feet, ensuring that you get a smooth shot without the need to rig up your camera, having the anamorphic mode allows you to change your aspect ratio in post and offers more flexibility. Panasonic really did an excellent job with making a camera like this, and I think it serves a variety of filmmakers. Now with all that being said, this camera does have some shortcomings that I want to touch on real quick. First off, being a micro four thirds sensor, you're going to have some limitations in terms of low light performance. When I compare this side by side between my Sony a7S III, you can see that as we approach up to about ISO 2000 is probably the highest I'd want to go on this camera. And if you do plan on shooting in vlog, then you do have to really watch your ISO. So if a majority of your work is in lower light conditions, then I would recommend either looking at a Sony camera or perhaps getting a speed booster with the GH5. And that'll allow you to get a wider image as well as one more stop of light. The other con that I will bring up is if you plan on filming yourself is that the autofocus performance on the GH5 is not great. Now it does have some sort of autofocus and I have used it from time to time. And the truth is that the autofocus performance is not reliable for video. And those are really the only two downsides I see with this camera. And if you are a beginner filmmaker, I don't think those are necessarily things that are deal breakers for your first camera. Now, if I were starting all over again and only had $500 to purchase a camera, I think that camera would be the GH5. So let me know your thoughts on the GH5 in the comments down below. And if you are curious about other cameras that are under $500, then be sure to check out this comparison right here.